New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good evening and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. I am Reverend Jim Webb, Senior Minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, and the author of The Soul of Prosperity, as well as 2 new books, Bringing Your Vision Boards to Life and Prosperity from A to Z. So we're going to talk about prosperity tonight and all kinds of prosperity. We're going to talk about spiritual prosperity, the sense of well-being that you have no matter what is going on outside of you. We're going to talk about relationship prosperity, a sense of peace and harmony with everyone around you. We're going to talk about relationship prosperity with a capital R, wondrous, intimate, or family relationships as well, that are also a source of nurturing and sustenance. We're going to talk about financial prosperity so that your finances are no longer a source of stress or uncertainty, but are a source of joy and create a path for your joy. And we're going to talk about professional prosperity, where, in the words of Florence Scovel Shinn, you have a wonderful job with wonderful pay where you offer a wonderful service in a wonderful way, and you find professional fulfillment. Because prosperity is all these things and more. And as we start a new year, we have another opportunity to build our prosperity. And I'd like to use that word, build our prosperity, because you actually are building something as you create your prosperity. And now is a good time to look at your building plans. Now is a good time to look at your foundation. Now is a good time to look at the structure of your prosperity so that you can build it in a way that yields your heart's desires. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to make sure that your building doesn't collapse. And what do I mean when I say make sure your building doesn't collapse? Well, we all know many people who have had New Year's resolutions, and we all know people whose New Year's resolutions have had a shelf life of about 12 days. So if you want to build your prosperity, you have to make your resolutions stick. So we're going to talk about making your resolutions stick tonight. And when I say we, it's not just me. It's one of your favorite guests, Edward Miller, author of Soul Power, a powerful, wonderful coach, a very wise teacher, and an accomplished author as well.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ed.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on with you the first of the year. That's very powerful.
Yes, you are my first guest this year. You have special status as a guest. Yes, so we're going to talk about making your resolutions stick. And one of the things I notice is that for some, our resolutions have a shelf life of 12 days. Why do you think that is, Ed?
I think that people start out, there's a day of enthusiasm right before New Year's, where I can start all over again. I can start anew and I can make it happen this time. And I think that people aren't preparing or planning for these new intentions. So very quickly, they get distracted and they're back to, disregarding their goals. And that's just kind of the way it works with most people.
Oh, so what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is that preparation is an important aspect of making your New Year's resolution stick.
Absolutely. To do big things or even to accomplish small, significant things. Preparation always is going to be essential.
Yes, that's so fascinating because when I think of preparation, I think of painting a room and how anybody can do like this and take a roller and put color on a wall. But the real work is the preparation, the taping of the doors, the taping of the windows, the covering of the carpeting, so you don't paint the carpet instead of the walls. And so I guess it's the same in our resolutions.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you talked about, it's also like being very intentional. We spend a lot of time having visions and dreams and of what we want to accomplish, but we don't spend the time in putting the arms and legs on these things in order to have the demonstration, have the manifestation. We just seem like, unresolved dreams most of the time. And people go through years and years and years of that, of single dreams that they never get a chance to demonstrate.
So what can we do, Ed? What can we do?
I think, I've been very blessed for a long time to accomplish big things. I ran big businesses. I accomplished big tasks. And I even writing my book and I'm sure you've had this experience yourself, writing your book is a big task. And there's so much to it that I realize that I'm most successful, I'm most accomplished when I put down things in writing. When I have step-by-step progress. And I even identify the small steps so that I can just verbalize everything that has to be accomplished in the process of accomplishing the goal. You get very, they always say you tell people what your goals and dreams. I disagree with that. I think often talking to others is an opportunity to verbalize it in your head and to get real clear on it.
So it sounds to me, it's fascinating, but what you just said strikes a chord because there's a certain alchemy from transferring something to an esoteric idea to something tactical, to something on paper, to something that is tangible and real. That alchemy, I think, helps to shift the vibration from a miasma of good intentions to a practical, actionable set of steps. So writing it down is, in a sense, a commitment, because when you write it down, it almost is the first step in creating it as something real, as opposed to just an esoteric idea.
Yeah, and it's good to start with why am I interested in this intention? Why am I interested in this goal? Why am I doing this? To really explore that, your reasoning, because your reasoning has a lot to do with your, what do you call it, your subconscious intentions? Because if you're not clear with your conscious intention, your subconscious intention will take over the whole thing.
Absolutely.
End up right back where you started.
Exactly. The first paragraph of my book, create a self-manifesting vision board, is describing that a vision board is not, the compensation for your unmet needs. And the reason that I wanted to put that in was for exactly what you said. Quite often, we don't even understand why we want something. And quite often, the why is an unresolved or unmet need that we want to compensate for.
Yeah.
If I do this, then I will be okay. If I accomplish this, then I will be lovable. If
Yes.
this happens, then
Yes.
I will feel secure in my life. And spiritually, that's actually putting the cart before the horse, because what we know about prosperity is that it is an inner energy that
Right.
then shows
Absolutely.
up outside. So we have to focus on what is the inner why? What is the need beneath the need?
Yes.
And one of the other things I found, Ed, is that we have to align our need with God's intention for us, because we are co-creators with God. It would, and so we have to be in sync with God. Now, I said the word in sync, and obviously that's a cue for you.
It
So
is.
how do we get in sync with our divine
I
intention?
love that question. Yeah. I think we get in sync with any of our goals when really getting clear on what our intentions are.
Uh-huh.
You know, I opened up charter schools about 20 years ago. I opened up 4 charter schools, and I didn't know anything. I'd never been in a school. I'd never run it. I'd never been a teacher, but I
Uh-huh.
had felt that there was a passion in me to create a educational institution that was special and that offers special opportunities for kids who are disadvantaged,
Yes.
or what they called at risk. So I
Yes.
had never done this before. I had never been a school teacher before, but I got very, very clear on my intentions. What did I want to open the school for? What was my purpose? What was I trying to accomplish? And I realized the clearer I got on it, the realized that I wanted to do it to nurture myself. There was a part of it that I knew once I accomplished this big task, this big goal, that it would be enriching for my spirit. And it was. It was probably the most enriching thing that I've ever been part of. But I was so committed and so loyal and so passionate about it until it got up. And it demonstrated like magic, because it was very much about being clear on my intentions, being clear on what the purpose was, and planning every single step out, so I can clearly see what the obstacles would be and where the opportunities were in order to make it happen, and the people I could connect with.
So you said something very powerful there that I'd like to underline. That is, just like when you're painting, you want to tape the windows and doors, you want to cover the floors. You were very intentional, and you planned and plotted it out. And to me, sometimes it seems like if you have a resolution, you have to sandwich it. And I call it a resolution sandwich. This is my resolution. These are the spiritual needs behind it, and these are the actions that follow it. So it's a sandwich. The resolution is in the middle of the spiritual preparation, the spiritual clarity, and the spiritual alignment. And then on the other side of that is the actual planned step-by-step work.
Yes.
And the resolution is sandwiched between them in the same way that a hamburger is sandwiched between 2 buns.
Between 2 buns, exactly. It's interesting that you said that, it being a spiritual thing. When you get really, really clear, Reverend Jim, on your intentions, on a plan, on a process plan, the universe steps in and brings all kinds of grace and opportunities and sinking blessings in order to make that dream happen. I mean,
yes.
Tell people about your situation this morning, which was a perfect example of being intentional and demonstrating from a miracle standpoint.
Yes, it was just absolutely incredible, and you were a witness.
I was.
This jacket that I'm wearing. See this jacket? It didn't exist 8 hours ago, because I didn't bring a jacket on the plane with me down to Florida. And I realized this as Edward and I were having breakfast. So I started texting my friends whose size approximates mine, but everybody in Florida doesn't wear jackets. Nobody in Florida wears jackets because it's like 200 degrees and you go everywhere in shorts and polo shirts.
So let me ask you, what was your intention?
My intention was to show up as best I could and to manifest a jacket.
Yes.
And I put the rest in God's hands. So I felt compelled. The waiter, as I was texting around my friends, and I ran into some friends in the place where we went to breakfast, they didn't have jackets. I texted around, nobody had a jacket. And something compelled me, because you remember this, something compelled me to tell my story to this waiter. I told my story to this waiter, and he said, "What size are you?" And I told him my size, and he said, "Well, it just so happens that I live across the street, and my girlfriend is coming over in a few minutes to have breakfast. So I'll ask her to bring a jacket over." And it just manifested just like that, because I knew that I was going to have a jacket, but I had done all that I could do, and then I put it into God's hands.
Well, there was a point, Reverend Jim, where you said, "You know what? It's okay.
Yes.
I don't need it."
Exactly. I had done everything I could do, and then I put it into God's hands. I've done everything I can do. This is all right. I'm going to be okay whether I have a jacket or not. My show's going to be wonderful, and it is not, and it does not matter what I wear. And once I released it, do everything you could do, and then release it to God, God stepped in, and that synchronicity kicked in.
It does.
And that
has happened to me so many times.
Yes.
Where I've been intentionally pursuing something with every avenue my mind was capable of pursuing it with. And then I said to myself, you know what? I need to let this go and let the universe does what the universe does. And then all the solution starts coming to me.
Yes. You've got to. This sounds like an old song by Donny Hathaway and Roberta Flack that actually James Taylor did first, called "You've Got a Friend." But you've got a friend and Carol King, I think, wrote it. But you've got a friend in the universe. And I love what you said. If you put down your intentions and you put down your plans, you give the universe something to do by doing that.
You do.
And by releasing it to the universe can fill in the blanks in ways that you can't even imagine. And that's how this prosperity stuff works.
It is.
Yes. So
and then the gratitude comes in.
Yeah, tell us about that.
The blessings that we get that we don't know where they're coming from. Those are the miracles.
Yes.
And when you can say, thank you for the invisible that demonstrated this manifestation. Thank you for that. We then know who we are. We're part of that unconscious or conscious awareness that demonstrates things. But it was beautiful, man. I really enjoyed what I learned from watching you was your attitude about the whole thing this morning. When you got off the plane, you were like, I need a jacket. And then as it got closer to the point where you had to get on your show this morning, I don't need a jacket. And then the universe gave you exactly the size and color exactly that you needed. So,
exactly.
Wow.
It was just absolutely amazing, because what it really was, the need beneath the need was my need to heal at a deeper level.
Oh, wow. I love that.
There is a part of me that has placed conditions on my acceptability. I am only acceptable, lovable, viable, legitimate if. And part of that was the jacket. And the lesson that the universe had for me was, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So when I released that, then the jacket appeared. And at that point, it was like, oh, this is so cool. But I had healed what needed to be healed in the situation.
Yes. And, it's interesting. We'll go back to that one more time about once you said that you didn't need it, it was there. But you know what, Reverend, that's in every situation I've been in my life when I wanted something.
Yes.
I wanted a building for my high school. I had given a charter to open up a charter school high school. And I didn't have a building. I didn't have a site for it. I had just written out a wonderful application that the state of Florida agreed to allow me to open up a charter school. So I did, but I didn't know where it was going to be. And one day I was sitting in my office And
Mhm.
a gentleman came in. He says, "Listen, I've done a lot of research about you, and you're a man that gets things done." And I said, "Oh, okay, you know." And then he says, "I have a client that's looking for a guy who can make things happen, and they want to donate to you a building and 8 acres of land."
Mm. Mm.
8 acres of land
Mm.
with a building, and they'll pay for you, and they'll pay to renovate this building, which is a $3.6 million renovation. So I didn't have any money. I found a supporter who gave me they didn't give it to me, actually. They sold it to me. But the bottom line is I didn't have access to it. And they gave me access to it.
Yeah.
They did the funding for the renovations to turn it into a school.
Uh-huh.
I got a chance to design a high school. I didn't know anything about running a high school, but I got a chance to design a high school based on my visions and my dreams. So it was just an incredibly big demonstration, but it happened when I said, I don't know how I'm going to make this happen. I stopped looking at locations. I stopped, I just had to give up on my intense search and allow the universe to bring to me what was there.
Yes, and there are some important lessons in A Course in Miracles that can help us do this. The Course in Miracles, the lessons go in a cycle. Learn something, learn something, learn something, release. Learn something, learn something, learn something, release. There's a lesson that repeats itself. I don't know what anything is for, where we do all we can and then we release it to the universe. We do our part and then let God do theirs, because God is a co-creator with us. And it sounds like your rhythm and my rhythm, they were the same. It's like, I do all I can. I do all the healing. I do all the visioning. I do all the planning. And then I don't know how it's going to happen, because I put that in God's hands. And there's a special lesson in A Course in Miracles. I place my future in the hands of God.
Well, let me ask you a question. What about when you face these things that you really, really, really want? You dream, you can visualize it, you vision board it, you write out your goals and your steps, and you're still meeting obstacles around every turn. How do you manage those type of situations?
I look at them as, this is an opportunity for me to see my no, so I can turn my no into yes. You see, God has a yes for each and every one of us. And that yes is unconditional. That yes is broader, deeper, wider, and more powerful than the yes that we dare imagine.
I agree.
Our task is to identify our no, turn our no into a yes, so our yes can meet the yes of God. So when I run into obstacles, I know that those obstacles were put there by my unconscious mind. And what I've learned is not to blame somebody else, not to waste my energy directing anger or frustration at somebody else, but to instead look within and to realize what within me is saying no to the yes God offers.
Yes. And
And once I look,
once you ask that question, you get like the sign behind you, love yourself. Once you ask that question, you realize the obstacle in your subconscious thinking that's keeping you stuck in space.
yes,
And then you can say to yourself, you know what? I have compassion for that boy or that man
yes,
who's living out the same obstacle over and over again. Let me be
yes,
with him. Let me love him. Let me be aware
yes,
of what he's afraid of and what he's still
yes.
stuck in.
Exactly. I bring that aspect of my consciousness to the upper room, which is
Yes.
symbolic of a place of higher vibration, where that higher vibration can nurture that aspect of my consciousness. I have a phrase that I use that actually a friend of mine is writing a book using this phrase, God, I let you in, where I invite the grace, the healing, the power, and the glory of God into that place within my consciousness,
Yes.
that the grace and power of God can heal and transform it. Because if the power of God could create heaven and earth, the power of God could certainly release from me an illusion of not enoughness or
Yes. What about
undeserving.
when shame or guilt hits you for not accomplishing or staying on track or getting distracted with your
I
goal?
say, I turn into Britney Spears and I go, oops, I did it again. Oops.
Exactly.
Another layer of my consciousness is coming up for healing. Oops. I have another opportunity for growth. Oops. God's light wants to move deeper within me and dislodge that which is not true about me. It is not true that I am undeserving. It is not true that there's something wrong with me. It is not true that I am weak and powerless. It is not true that these things are withheld from me because of who I am, who I was, or who I think I am, or who I don't think I am. And each time God's truth, which says, you are my beloved, innocent, holy, perfect child, and you are whole just as you are. Each time God's truth moves into a deeper layer and level of that consciousness, that purification prepares me for the miracles, like the miracle we experienced today, just like your preparation prepared you for the miracle of that school being made manifest. Preparation.
Well, also, I have to be aware that I am going to feel shame and guilt sometimes. It's just a feeling.
Yes.
It doesn't make me wrong or inadequate. They're just feelings, and everybody has moments of shame or feelings of inadequacy. And what you do is you allow that feeling to be there.
Yes.
Without pushing it away in judgment, without making yourself wrong for feeling what you're feeling. Much of our resistance is that we're not wanting to feel what we're feeling.
Yes. Yes. One of the keys, and this is both in my book, Pathways to Inner Peace, and in my book, The Soul of Prosperity, is it's about releasing those emotions with love. And the first aspect of releasing those emotions and those energies with love is giving yourself permission to recognize them, feel them, honor yourself, and honor those emotions, as opposed to fighting them.
Absolutely. I was a smoker.
Oh, okay.
And I remember quitting smoking. You face so much shame and guilt because you're first of all, you're told you're doing something that's unhealthy. You're embarrassed to do it around other people. You have to do it in secrecy and shame. And it's just, and then you go through these periods of trying to figure out how to, the shame of the wanting of the cigarette, the shame of wanting the feeling that you're weak because you want a cigarette. Well, there's a process that needs to take place in order to surrender to those feelings.
Yes.
And be okay with, I'm wanting a cigarette really bad right now. And I think I'm going to give myself one. I'm not wrong for doing it. I'm not backsliding. I'm just in this moment realizing that this feeling of wanting to have a cigarette right now is very intense.
Yes.
And I think right now I'm going to allow myself to have it. What will happen often is we open up the cigarette, take the smoke, and it's like, oh my God, I don't want that. Much of what we're desiring so intensely and feeling as though we have to have, once we get it, it doesn't make it, we don't care about it anymore. I mean, that's what's been my experience.
Yes, because the process of what you describe as the struggle is the process of recognition and healing. Just like today, it was like, oh, I don't need a jacket. It's going to be okay. That was the release. That was the struggle was okay. That brought it up to the surface. That brought it up for your natural healing mechanism to kick in. And what I mean by your natural healing mechanism, Spirit is always working with us and through us and on us. And just like when you get a cut, when the blood hits the oxygen in the air, it triggers the coagulants in the blood. So the blood coagulates and creates a natural Band-Aid.
Yes.
Well, guess what? When we go into our distress, Spirit naturally kicks in that same way. And whatever it is that we are distressing, whatever it is that we are expressing, whatever it is that we are experiencing in terms of emotions, Spirit is already there to literally hoover it away like a Hoover vacuum cleaner and replace it with peace. And as we intentionally do this, we naturally go to that place of peace and healing. So we're going to talk a little bit more on the other side of the break. We're going to talk a little bit more about what to do in the middle when we're halfway there and all those unconscious fears and doubts start kicking in and we need to get all the way through. So in the second portion of this program, we're going to talk about how to get through to the other side. And for now, we're going to go to break here on the New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network with the Miracle of Prosperity. And we're talking tonight with Ed Miller on making your New Year's resolutions stick. And one of the things that we chatted about briefly before the break was what happens and how do we handle what I call the muddle in the middle. You know, we always start off with a bang, just like a track and field runner. We start off with a bang. But what happens in the middle? when we lose steam? And how do we continually reset in order to finish the race so that we stick with our New Year's resolutions? And one of the things I noticed is that when we are in the middle, it truly is a process, because it really often is not about what goal you attain. As A Course in Miracles says, God is my goal every day. And as you have God as your goal, everything else is going to work out. Like that old scripture, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. So, quite often we think we have this external goal, this thing we want to accomplish. But really, what is most important is the healing that happens along the way. Just like this morning, it wasn't about the jacket, it was about the healing that brought the jacket.
I like that.
So how do we handle the muddle in the middle, which is when all our stuff comes up, all our no's come up, all our doubts come up, all our fears come up, all our illusions about ourselves come up? How do we handle that? And the way that this quite often manifests is that we miss a goal. We miss a goal. We miss a goal. Then all our stuff comes up, and our habitual reflex to beat ourselves up kicks in. So how can we handle that, Ed Miller?
Well, that's incredible, because everybody faces that. Everybody faces those moments when they're so intentional and they're so clear as to what they're going to get done and what they're going to accomplish, and then it gets hard. And then the big challenges come in, and then the things that when we're outside of our comfort zone, that we have to face those insurmountable type of problems. How do we get beyond that? And you know what I believe in? I believe first of all, in this process of any kind of goal, you've got to have things in writing. You've got to have a plan, and you got to have micro plans too. So when you do get caught, and when you are feeling that the things are insurmountable, you then start breaking things down into micro goals. And because you're still trying to create momentum about what you're doing. Even when your mind is locked in fear and doubt, you still want to try to accomplish some micro goals so you can give yourself credit for continuing to go after your dream. Because if you don't, you're going to never give yourself credit for anything. But even if you just break down your things to micro goals, you can start kind of giving yourself some gifts of reassurance. And look at me, I'm still getting it done. Look at me, I'm still on track. Let me reevaluate my goals so to make sure that they're reasonable and they make sense and they're balanced. I'm not just, overwhelmed with things. Let's reevaluate where I am right now. So, maybe I can, readjust things and make this more, something that I can handle and not feel so overwhelmed and out of sorts for.
Yes, the micro goal of the big bill. I have a story about this. I got a big tax bill once. It was because DC didn't charge me enough for taxes one year, and they forgot that they didn't charge me enough for taxes.
You're so special.
And so then they realized 10 years later, with 10 years worth of interest and penalties, that they hadn't charged me enough taxes 10 years prior. And it was a big tax bill. And so what I did when it came, I knew it was a big tax bill because my accountant had called me. And so the first thing I did is I left it in the mailbox for an extra day because I didn't want to deal with it.
I know. They just stay in the mailbox for another day. I hear you.
Yes. But I acknowledged it. It was there.
It's there.
And the next thing I did is I brought it in the house.
There you go.
The next thing I did after I brought it in the house is I brought it back to the kitchen where I sort my bills and mail.
Yes.
The next thing I did is I brought it to the computer where I pay my bills. The next thing I did is I opened it. The next thing I did is I visualized the resources coming together, how I was going to pay it. And after about 10 days, I finally wrote a check. And so each day I got a little closer to it. And one of my beloveds, Reverend Cynthia Bond, says, if you're not willing to do it yet, be willing to be willing. And that is like, okay, be willing to take one step, one little thing forward. And that's, I jokingly call that the micro goal of dealing with a bill.
I agree. I want to suggest to everyone listening to this podcast to go to Staples, which is a office supply store, and get a "That Was Easy" button.
Yes.
You ever seen the "That Was Easy" button? They sell them at Staples.
Yes. I have a gift for one. I have a what do you call it? A GIF?
Yes.
For the Staples Easy button.
Well, let me promise you, if you are a person that likes to be give yourself acknowledgement for what you've accomplished, that button is such a blessing, because it builds in you this feeling of, look what I got done. That was easy.
Yes.
And the more you give yourself that was easy, even on little simple nothing tasks, it's still building up that was easy energy in you. I can get that done. I can make that happen. Yes. Because your mind wants to say, this is too much, this is hard, I can't get this done. But when you can give yourself a "that was easy," that's transformative.
Brilliant. And if you can't get out to Staples, just go on Google and Google Staples Easy button. Pull up an image of it, print it out, and put it on your computer.
Yeah, it really, we talked about micro goals, but it's also a lot about how you relate to yourself. That easy button is an acknowledgement. It's an, hey, there you go. It gives you, that a boy. You need to give yourself those all the time, even when you're off track.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Ed. I love that. Encourage yourself. Love yourself. Embrace yourself. Uplift yourself. Acknowledge yourself. See yourself. Trust yourself. Love yourself.
There you go.
Amen?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're actually
establish that new relationship with ourselves.
Yes.
And our goals.
Yes.
When we've messed up, when we've taken that cigarette that we didn't need, we don't have to be punished. Oh, I had a bad night. I was wrong. I slipped again. We can say, you know what? I had a vulnerable moment. And, I then threw the pack away. That was easy. It's really about relating to yourself from a positive place instead of relating to yourself from a problematic, troublesome place.
Yes. Whether it's a cigarette or a cookie. And besides, that cookie was good. Amen?
Yeah, the cookie was
I had a cookie. I slipped, and it was good.
So that's how I think that it's done. I think that we were first taking very detailed plans as to what we're trying to accomplish. Now, let me say something to you. A lot of people watching the show, some of them are going to be trying to accomplish losing 10 pounds. Some people are going to be trying to accomplish starting on a degree. Some people are going to be trying to be accomplished to clean out their garage. But it doesn't matter. Put it on paper. Create some micro goals so that you can see your steps toward getting there. And then every step of the way, that was easy. Give yourself acknowledgement.
Yes.
And if halfway through the year and you have totally blown off all your goals, instead of being, oh, Lord, I'm having a bad day. Look at me. I'm back to this, 6 months ago. Take that moment and say, I'm going to reestablish my first of the year goals right now. I'm going to make them clear on them again.
In Intervisions, we called it renegotiating your goals.
There you go.
You can always renegotiate. Circumstances may have changed. Something unexpected may have come up. You can renegotiate. It's like refinancing your mortgage. You can renegotiate.
But Reverend Jim, I have a question. Why do people feel as though punishing themselves and being hard on themselves and running themselves down is, is productive? Why do they feel like that's effective for them in getting themselves back on track?
Because of the Judeo-Christian model of progression. The Judeo-Christian model of progression is as follows. I am a sinner. I have sinned. There is something wrong with me. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. and this is how I make forward progress. And so we actually fetishize self-flagellation as
Yes.
a result of this model. And we believe that the only way to make the progress that we need to make is to flagellate ourselves. We
Yes.
believe that that's an integral component of it.
Yes.
And when in fact, that actually is a disincentive that actually keeps us from our goals. It's actually self-destructive.
It is.
But we have believed that this self-destructive act is an integral part of our progress because we do not believe that our reward is here. So we're willing to take this self-destruction.
So how do you, as a minister, teach people to respond that in a way that's just to them is going to seem, counterintuitive, counterproductive?
That's why I love A Course in Miracles, because it totally rethinks that whole model. A Course in Miracles starts with an absolutely different premise than everything we've been taught. Everything we've been taught starts with the premise of you are bad, the world is awful, and God hates you and is punishing you. A Course in Miracles starts with the absolute opposite premise. You are wonderful, beautiful, lovable, whole, loving, lovable, and complete. God never left you. God never kicked you out of the Garden of Eden, and God is not punishing you. And the world can be your playground for your joy, for God's will for you is perfect happiness. So you have a whole different set of operating principles.
I get that.
And these are the operating principles upon which you can build your prosperity, as opposed to operating principles that keep you stuck in an endless cycle of pain, suffering, and lack. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I was at a place, this is about 15 years ago, where I was in a mild depression and I felt like I was stuck and I wasn't getting anything done.
Mm-hmm.
And when your mind is in that negative place, all you have is excuses and complaints about where you're at and who you are and your behavior. And I need to get it together. And I need to, all these, I need to be, and, something and better. And I met a life coach back then. This must have been about 15 years ago. And he assured me that my self-talk is what was keeping me or lengthening my time of feeling low and down and disempowered. So I immediately started being aware of my self-talk. I started being aware of how I wasn't always kind to myself. I started being aware of how quickly I sold myself short. I was starting to be aware of how quickly I allowed myself to feel as though my feelings, I'm overwhelmed. And feeling overwhelmed is wrong. And I don't want to feel that way. I quickly started being aware of all those judgments and thoughts that I had in my mind. And I started putting a new truth on top of it. I put a new story on top of that. That I am powerful. I am capable. I am productive. I am creative. All these new thoughts I started to put on top of those old thoughts, and the new thoughts I started putting some emotional energy behind, and they started feeling true after a while. But it took a moment.
Yes, absolutely. And what you said is so important. You put emotional energy behind the new thoughts. What is emotional energy? What are emotions and what is energy? When we sit and we meditate, we commune with the universal energy, which is love. And when we allow that love to come to us and through us, and when we allow that love to surround us and move into the deepest layers of our consciousness, because that's what you did. That's what positive self-talk is. It is love. It is loving those parts of you that have been hypnotized by self-rejection, self-flagellation, negative self-evaluation, and self-denigration. And when you allow the infinite energy of love to wrap itself around those parts, what you're doing is you're teaching those parts of you something different. You're teaching the part of you that said, I don't like myself. to realize I am likable and I'm actually lovable and I actually am love. And that energy transformed you. And
Yes.
we are so glad that we see the result of that
Thank
transformation.
you.
You have blessed us all. And we thank you for the blessings that you offer today. People ask, is this going to be shareable? Yes, it is going to be on my Facebook page. It is going to be on my YouTube page. It is always available at the New Thought Media Network. And so there are plenty of places where you can share this with friends. Just go to my Facebook page, Reverend Jim Webb. It's live now, but soon it will just be up there as a post. And you can share it with everybody because there are lots of people you know who need this. And so we're going to go to break, and then we're going to talk about what our next steps can be. So we're going to go to break right now on the New Thought Media Network, and then we're going to talk about how we can take our next steps here on the New Thought Media Network. We're back for our final segment here on the New Thought Media Network. And let's call this segment, What's Next? What can our next steps be? And so I know that you always offer guidance for people. You've been so helpful tonight, Ed. Your idea of making a plan, making micro goals, recognizing negative self-talk, healing the parts of you that have been conditioned to be in negative self-talk can all be useful. So what are you working on these days, Ed?
Well, I've got a number of things I'm working on. I am going to be teaching classes all of next year on the NYOB platform, and I'm excited about that. I'm going to be specifically teaching non-duality, and I haven't had a class just on non-duality in a while, so I'm excited about that class. I'm starting my new podcast. I've been saying that for a while, but I'm starting my new podcast series, and I'm also doing a number of other programs this year that I've been invited to be participant in. So it's going to be an exciting 2023. I said 2003, that's 20 years ago. 2023 is, to me, going to be a really transformative year. I think it's going to be the year of yes. I think it's going to be the year of being open to seeing things differently.
Yes.
Responding to things differently. Be aware of my ego mind and how it's a trap for most of my stumbles, and just coming from my heart as much as possible. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity to share this with you, this first day of 2023 with you, and I'm looking forward to doing more with you in the next year.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well. I thank you for that idea. This is the year of yes. So I'm glad to hear the stuff that you're working on, Ed.
What are you working on?
Oh, well, I've got a couple of things that can be some powerful next steps. Number one, I have a new book,
I
that
read that book.
Prosperity from A to Z. And this book gives you brief, pithy spiritual practices and principles, each corresponding to a letter of the alphabet, that you can use every day to literally begin to vibrate with the prosperity consciousness that makes prosperity in your life inevitable. It's brief, it's easy to read, and some people call it the Cliff Notes version of.
Well, let me say this to your audience. Everybody should buy it and give it away as gifts. It is such an inspiring tool. Um, any student, anybody just starting out in the world with a new job, anybody who's just kind of dealing with some confusion, this book is a beautiful tool. So I thank you for it.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for reading it. And that's not all. I have a second tool because one of my goals this year was to do 2 more books by the end of the year. And my second tool is create a self-manifesting vision board. And I'm actually teaching a class on this that begins on January 19th. And what this book does is it takes vision boards and lets people know that they're much more than just pasting some images on a piece of paper. We work with the spiritual principles behind vision boards. We learn to integrate our vision with God's vision so that our yes meets the yes of God. We learn how to sandwich the vision board between other spiritual practices so that the vision board must be made manifest. We learn to bring the vision board to life. There are a number of different practices that we do that help us to do this. And the book outlines this. And we're going to do an 8-week class on it beginning on January 19th. And so that's what's happening. And that can be a wonderful way for people to take their next steps. But they have to take those steps quickly because that class is quickly selling out. The class begins on January 19th. There are only 5 slots left. So if you want to take that class with me, you can reach me. Go to my website, www.revjimwebb.com. Reach me there or call me or text me, and I'll make sure that you get a slot in the class because you have been watching this show before the class sells out. That's what I'm up to these days, and so much more. So I look forward to working with everyone in the coming year as we continue to expand our prosperity here on the Miracle of Prosperity and the New Thought Media Network. Happy New Year from me,
Happy New Year.
New Thought Media Network. Good night.